Hi, my name is Steve Chizmar, and I'm the Bureau Director of PennDOT's Bureau of Innovations. It is my pleasure to host a series of podcasts celebrating the 10th anniversary of Pennsylvania's State Transportation Innovation Council, or STIC for short. The first installment of the STIC's 10th year anniversary podcast series focuses on the origins and early beginnings of the PA STIC, which was established in 2012 and held its first business meeting in March of that same year. Today, I'm speaking with Michael Bonini, Director of PennDOT's Public-Private Transportation Partnerships Office. Mike, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Well, Mike, we're talking about the STIC. It's hard to believe that we're at the 10-year anniversary already. It's, you look back over it and wonder where those 10 years have gone. But, again, thank you so much for joining us. And we want to ask you some questions today about the very early days of the STIC. We know you were an integral part of that. So, again, thank you. Mike, can you please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what your involvement was in the early days of the Pennsylvania STIC?
Yeah, sure. Again, my name's Mike Bonini. I'm the director of our P3 office at PennDOT, but at the time of my involvement in the STIC, I was our research manager. And in about, I guess it was late 2012 or so, we in the research division in the Bureau of Planning and Research were asked to take on the management of the STIC, because at that time it was really nothing more than a signed partnership agreement between PennDOT and the Federal Highway Administration, or the Pennsylvania Division Office of FHWA. So our charge at that time was really to engage and develop a partnership, not only with a focus on, say, identifying and beginning to implement innovations throughout PA, but also to engage industry and academia through a partnership with the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, APC, or the Association of Pennsylvania Contractors, the American Council of Environmental Companies, or ACECPA, and through our established relationships that we had with Pennsylvania researchers across the Commonwealth. We also needed to ensure that we were hearing from local governments who were used to identifying innovations every day to solve the problems they had. And so our initial task was really to bring all of this expertise to the table, again, not only to begin to share innovations, but really to put together a process to, say, to institutionalize the acceptance and adoption of new technologies.
Well, thanks, Mike. Yeah, and when the STIC came together, it was, for want of a better term, relatively innovative in the fact that it brought together such a diverse group of organizations. As you mentioned, you did the Turnpike, the Federal Highway Administration, PennDOT, private industry, academia. Yeah, but they all came together to serve a common goal, of course, to advance innovations through the pipeline and to get technologies out there more quickly. Well, Mike, with that in mind, given some of the items that you've already told us, what was the original vision for the STIC?
It was really to get at what you were describing, and that's establishing a process for not only the identification of innovations, but also to make sure that our partners across the industry were at the table to not only discuss identifying innovations, but which ones to deploy. And then I think getting everyone to the table was, including all of our partners, was really the easy part. The hard part was trying to put in place a structure that would engage as many of our partners as possible, so that it wasn't just, say, PennDOT alone carrying a mandate with Federal Highway Administration, but we had all of our partners engaged.
Well, thanks, Mike. You touched on this already, but what do you think were some of the largest hurdles faced in creating the PA STIC?
I think it was really the process to engage the innovations community across all the transportation agencies throughout PA. I think we inherently knew that each of our partner organizations, like PennDOT, were solving their own needs through innovations, but we needed a process to share this innovation or this information with others. And so that's really what we tried to do and develop that process. And what we really tried to do were put together or establish technical advisory groups, or the TAGs, initially, I think to involve as many people as possible in the innovation identification, evaluation, and deployment, we at the time had 10 tags represented to again really look at how do we improve the system, the security, the mobility of transportation users, and how do we get as many people as possible from our partner organizations interested in helping us, really carry that mantle forward.
Mike, if another state agency, another PA state agency, or even another state would come to you and say, "Hey, Mike, how did you do this? How could we establish a similar innovations council?" What advice could you give them?
Um, I think I would advise anyone who was, really seeking to establish a process of innovation, identification, and deployment to cast a net as wide as possible and engage as many partners as possible. I think the initial successes and I think the continued success of the STIC are really the relationships that have been established between all of the partner organization. I'd argue that those established relationships, they lead to trust between all of the organizations or agencies, and that helps strengthen our innovation processes because we're all working together to improve, the transportation systems. And so I think through, an innovations council like the STIC and through working groups, I would recommend that folks try to gather as many innovation champions together as possible because they're going to be the ones that are really leading the charge and promoting and, advocating for the benefits of new technologies or innovations.
Oh, thank you, Mike. And as we mentioned, you were involved like from that first meeting, real almost from the get-go with the STIC. I know that you crisscross the state. You've been to other states talking about the STIC. You've done a lot to help the program get up and running. What was your most memorable moment during your involvement with the STIC?
I think the most memorable part of my involvement with the STIC were definitely, the road shows, our Innovation Day workshops, and our demonstration days. And what we were trying to do is get out to the field as much as possible to share innovations and to bring other ideas into practice as soon as possible so that all users could benefit from a safer and smoother and more efficient transportation system. And so we put into place Innovation Day workshops, and we try to develop props and exhibits that were designed to really supplement some of the technical presentations that would occur so that folks could not only learn about an innovation, but they could see it in a practice setting, in a fun and interactive way. And so we developed models and we tried to use Legos or whatever it was to really advocate for why a particular benefit or an innovation would be beneficial for an organization to consider. I think we'd get, between 100 and 200 people at some of these events, and just the energies of people talking about innovations and trying to figure out the best way to deploy it and the best way to institutionalize it by, whether it's updating pubs or standards or specs, just to give people the ability to use those things or to make sure that liquid fuels funds could be used for municipalities. A lot of that was really driven from just going out and listening to folks through these innovation days and hearing what was working and what people, what they didn't know, and giving them, I think, an opportunity to educate folks on some of the successes they were experiencing.
Well, thanks, Mike. Actually, you mentioned the tools. I still have to say the stick car, or the model that was used to demonstrate high friction surfaces, is among my most memorable, most favorite, I would have to say. And we still talk about that a lot. And you're right, there was a lot of great models put together to help demonstrate the benefits of the STIC and of innovations. Mike, speaking about innovations, we've had some just fantastic innovations roll through the STIC. I mean, warm mix asphalt, high friction surface, intelligent compaction. I mean, really, just to name a few. But do any innovations particularly stand out to you in terms of benefits to Pennsylvania? And if so, why is that?
Yeah, I think you know, the high friction surface treatments that you mentioned sticks out, no pun intended, from just the standpoint of it was an also one of the innovations that we held a demonstration day out in Lebanon County to not only give folks sort of a classroom setting of what the technology was, but after that was over, we went out into the field and watched it be applied to a state route in Lebanon County where there were high crash incidents, and so just seeing that technology be deployed in a setting like that, and giving folks an opportunity to really touch it, feel it, smell it as it was happening was pretty it stands out. In addition, I think our deployment of the GRS IBS, or that geosynthetic reinforced soil integrated bridge system, which was really a low cost, easy to build bridge system that municipalities could benefit from. And we were able to show with installation and building those for PennDOT a reduced cost of up to like 60% for other organizations to consider. And so just being able to articulate this new technology and show that it can save you time and or money, those stand out.
Mike, we had talked a little bit earlier, and I heard you mention townships. I heard you mention municipalities, and it harkens back to something we talked about earlier, where the STIC brought together such a vast array of transportation advocates, transportation partners. Um, and it speaks to collaboration. It speaks to collaboration to move innovations forward. And I want to ask you that question: why is collaboration so incredibly important in helping to advance innovations?
Um, it's a good question. I think collaboration builds trust, and I think champions then are needed to provide, say, a key resource of someone who's been there and done that with a particular innovation, all in an attempt to show that you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel every time to solve a problem, but you could look at an innovation that was deployed elsewhere, and hopefully promoted through something like a STIC, and use that particular technology or innovation to improve your transportation system. So I think just having the collaboration established through something like a STIC can help move innovations to organizations that may not have known about them.
Mike, you know that the Pennsylvania STIC has been held up numerous times as a model for success. I mean, it's won several awards on the federal level. Um, what do you think makes the Pennsylvania STIC stand out from the rest? And why do you think it's been so successful?
Um, I I think one of the things that stands out is the fact that it was just widely accepted and still is as a key resource for innovation identification and going through an evaluation process to determine whether or not things were really ready for others to use. And then I think we were able to demonstrate that we were tracking deployment and really showing the benefit of investing money into the promotion of different innovations. I also think our system of engaging those technical advisory groups and having a STIC endorse from an executive level innovations, not only demonstrated that key top level support needed to let folks know that these innovations were out there, and quite frankly that they were empowered to consider using these innovations.
Like, I want to ask you to step out a little more broadly and just outside of the STIC, but still staying on the topic of innovations. What do you think of some of the larger challenges that are facing the transportation industry here in PA, as well as on the national level? And how do you think innovation in particular can help address those challenges?
I think some of the larger challenges that are facing our industry involve the use of new technologies, really in a much more complex environment that's ever existed. So, not only do we still have to deal with the maintenance and operation of a transportation system, meaning we're identifying and deploying innovations with our winter operations, snow plowing, and our regular maintenance activities. But then you start thinking about the deployment of new technologies like automated vehicles and the need to develop, standards for those electric vehicle deployment and the need to put together a system to support that deployment across the Commonwealth. The need for our systems collectively to be connected with each other. And so, you've got a lot of new technologies that are out there. They're initially expensive to deploy. They're complicated to understand. And so I think you need a group like the STIC to be the champions for these things, to drive home the benefits of those new technologies so that they're introduced, to the community or to the transportation industry as folks are still dealing with the day-to-day operations of, really maintaining our system. And so I think would be looking for champions to kind of drive home those benefits of those new technologies, so that folks can use those things to make their jobs or the system safer and more efficient.
Mike, I think you and I have a similar number of years in the transportation industry. So, a lot of the things that you and I saw early on are now best practices today. It's amazing how technology just keeps evolving and innovations keep evolving. And, we've been fortunate to have a program like the STIC to keep those innovations moving through the pipeline. But looking ahead, any thoughts on where you think the STIC will be in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I hope it's still, one of the main sources for innovation, identification, and deployment in the future, so that all transportation agencies, across the Commonwealth and all of our partner organizations know that there's an established resource that's looking to, I guess, find ways to solve problems or to, shorten the project delivery process, enhance safety, and integrate some of this automation that's coming to play with those new technologies.
Mike, thank you. Again, we've been speaking with Mike Bonini, director of PennDOT's P3 office. Mike, is there anything you want to add or anything that you wish I would have asked but didn't?
No, not that I can think of. Just wanted to, thank you for including me in this review of the STIC. It was definitely an exciting team to be a part of, and it's really refreshing to see a continued STIC presence. The tools you have online and the stuff that you guys deploy today is really is nice to see, and it's encouraging again to know that there's this resource out there that folks hopefully take advantage of.
Thank you for joining us today and for helping us celebrate the PA STIC's 10th anniversary and its efforts to develop and deploy innovations across Pennsylvania. Visit www.penndot.pa.gov/STIC to learn more about the PA STIC and how we are innovating transportation in Pennsylvania.